The colossal viewports of Solarian Nexus sprawled before Ethan Solis, framing a breathtaking vista of the nebula that enveloped the Intergalactic Combat Academy. Swirls of amethyst and molten gold danced beyond the transparent aluminum walls, a cosmic symphony that captivated most cadets. But Ethan's gaze was locked on the glowing gravity display of the training module ahead, and its numbers pulsing like a challenge. Standard gravities for standard species, he murmured, tugging at his threadbare training uniform. The patched fabric scarred from countless men's was a quiet badge of pride for Earth's climate refugees who could only dream of the sleek, self-repairing suits worn by the elite. The orientation hall thrummed with the energy of hundreds of new cadets, a kaleidoscope of galactic diversity. Vasari floated in shimmering mobility fields, their crystalline forms scattering the station's artificial light into prismatic rainbows. Gravons lumbered past their 4-ton frames, making the reinforced deck groan in protest. Near the observation deck, a group of Sarathians lounged, their sinuous tails coiled beneath them, like living sculptures radiating quiet menace. "Welcome, cadets, to your first day at the Academy." Commander Torin Varkas's voice boomed from the central dais, resonant with the weight of a dozen hard-fought campaigns. His scarred visage and cybernetic eye glinting with mechanical precision swept over the crowd. "You are the future of galactic peacekeeping. Some of you will lead fleets. Others will forge treaties to avert wars. And a few," his gaze lingered on Ethan, sharp and knowing, "a few will dare to upend the very systems that brought you here." Ethan's jaw clenched, his heart a quiet storm. Nobody could know about Lila, his sister whose brilliant mind was now caged in a body racked by tremors, collateral damage from the Mumbai dome breach when algorithms coldly prioritized higher Vitascore casualties. She'd been a volunteer medic racing to save lives as the atmospheric processors failed, only to be discarded by a system that valued numbers over souls. "Each species brings unique strengths to our alliance," Varkas continued, his voice steady as steel. "Fazari with their phase-shifting mastery, Gravons with their unmatched mass and power, Sarathians with tails that sense the faintest ripples in gravitational fields. And humans." A mocking voice cut through the air from the Gravon section. Korath Vren stepped forward, his crystalline skin refracting light like a living prism. "What do they bring besides fragile bones and a need for coddled atmospheres?" Laughter rippled through parts of the crowd, sharp and cutting. Ethan felt a flush of heat in his neck, but kept his face a mask of calm. This was the Vitascore system at work. Codified disdain for human resilience baked into the galaxy's hierarchy. "A fine question," Cadet Vren Varkas replied, a glint of amusement in his organic eye. "Perhaps a human cadet would care to enlighten us." Ethan didn't hesitate, stepping forward before doubt could anchor him. "I'd like to request a modification to my training environment, sir." The hall fell silent, a collective intake of breath. First-day requests were as rare as a supernova in a training sector. "Speak," Cadet Varkas prompted. "Ethan Solis, sir. I request my gravity be set to 3 times Earth standard for the orientation exercises." The silence deepened, heavy as a black hole's pull. Even the Fazari paused, their endless phase shifting, their translucent forms frozen in astonishment. 3 times Earth gravity was Gravon territory, suicidal for most humans. Cadet Solis Varkas said, his tone measured, deliberate. "You understand that such a setting risks catastrophic organ failure for your species?" "With respect, sir," Ethan replied, voice steady as the stars. "Humans have been defying extremes since we crawled from Earth's oceans to its peaks and now to the void itself. I'm only asking to train at my true potential." A Sarathian female rose with predatory grace, her silver-scaled tail swaying like a metronome of menace. Her amber eyes gleamed with curiosity and a hint of mischief, her presence as captivating as it was dangerous. "True potential," she purred, circling him with the elegance of a hunter. Bold words for a species averaging a Vitascore of 42. "And you are?" Then met her gaze unflinching despite the electricity in her proximity. "Zara Vera, sensory specialist, combat track." She stepped closer, her scent a sharp blend of ozone and cinnamon filling the air. "Sarathians have a tradition for testing new squad mates." Without warning, her tail lashed out, coiling around his waist with the strength of a python. The warm, scaled appendage pressed against him, its microsensors humming against his worn uniform. "This measures neural response, muscle density, cardiovascular efficiency," she said, her face inches from his voice, a velvet challenge. Most humans panic here. Their hearts race, muscles seize, breathing falters. Ethan forced himself to relax into her grip, resisting the instinct to fight. He'd studied Sarathian culture. Panic was weakness, but trust earned respect. Fascinating, he said, a grin breaking through despite the pressure on his ribs. Do you always get this close before introductions, or am I just lucky? Zara's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise, perhaps admiration. Her tail's sensors would be reading his steady pulse, the controlled breaths honed in the suffocating blackouts of refugee camps. If you slip from my grip in the next 30 seconds, she declared loud enough for all to hear, you don't deserve triple gravity. And if I don't, Ethan shifted subtly, finding his balance as she began to move, testing his adaptability. Maybe humans aren't all as fragile as your rankings claim. She spun sharply, her tail aiming to throw him off. But Ethan had grown up in Nova Mumbai's vertical slums, where kids learned to navigate crumbling maintenance shafts before they could run. He moved with her, using her momentum like a dance partner. When she lifted him off the ground, he tucked his knees, twisting his center of mass to land with the grace of a seasoned acrobat. The hall exploded in cheers, and of course someone was recording. By the time Zara released him with a nod of approval, the footage was already racing across galactic networks. Not bad, human, Zara said, her faint smile betraying deeper respect. But the gravity chambers aren't as forgiving as my tail. Good thing I thrive on challenges, Ethan shot back. Besides, I brew a mean coffee that could outshine any gravity. Stick around for my 3G session, and I might share the secret, coffee. Her head tilted, tail swishing in what Ethan was starting to recognize as amusement. That bitter sludge you humans worship, don't judge it till you've tasted it. Careful though, it might overload those fancy tail sensors. Commander Varkas cleared his throat, pulling attention back to the dais, though Ethan caught the ghost of a smile on the veteran's face. Very well, Cadet Solace. Your request for triple gravity is granted. You'll start immediately after orientation. Cadet Vera, since you're so invested in Solas's success, you'll be his spotter. Sir Zara's tail flicked in surprise. Consider it your first lesson in interspecies teamwork, Varkas said, his tone leaving no room for argument. As orientation droned on, Ethan felt the weight of his gambit settle in. The viral footage of human defying gravity norms, sparring playfully with a Sarathian's tail, would draw eyes to the upcoming interblock gravity trial. But beneath the spectacle, unseen algorithms were already at work. His enhanced contact lenses, a gift from a rogue coder in Nova Mumbai's underground, flickered with data streams. The Academy's systems were quietly sabotaging him based on his Vitascore quarters, 2 degrees colder than human comfort. Mess hall protein rations cut by 15%, training gear calibrated to induce failure. Subtle, deniable, and designed to prove humans couldn't compete. You know this is madness, right? Zara appeared at his side as he approached the gravity chambers, her voice low but laced with concern. Even Gravans take months to train for 3G. Madness is accepting a system that brands people inferior based on biology they can't change, Ethan said softly, his resolve ironclad. My sister Lila was a medic saving lives in disaster zones. When she needed help, the algorithm saw her Vitascore and left her to rot. Zara's tail curled slightly, a gesture Ethan couldn't yet decipher. You think crushing yourself in there will fix that? No, he admitted, pausing at the chamber's entrance. But it might force people to ask why a slum-born human knows more about surviving gravity than their tests allow. The chamber door hissed open, revealing a stark circular arena lined with omnidirectional gravity projectors. A lone pillar stood at its center, the calm before the storm. For what it's worth, Zara said, her professional mask slipping to reveal a flicker of warmth. I hope you make it through. You're more intriguing than most humans I've met. Just most, Ethan stepped inside, already sensing the faint tug of standby gravity fields. Don't tempt me, coffee boy, Zara teased, her smile genuine as she moved to the observation panel. Protocol says we start at 1.5 G and ramp up slowly. Since when do I care about protocol? Ethan called back. Zara's fingers danced over the controls with deliberate precision. Triple gravity in 60 seconds. May the stars have mercy on your fragile human bones. Ethan planted himself at the central pillar, legs braced wide. Nova Mumbai's refugees had taught him tricks for enduring brutal conditions. Mental chants, rhythmic breathing, ways to spread physical strain across his frame. 30 seconds, Zara announced, her tail pressed against the observation glass, sensors fully extended. Your neural activity's oddly calm. Meditating. Something like that. Ethan replied, his mind on Lila, her trembling hands, her brilliant spirit trapped by a system that discarded her. Tell me, Zara, what's your Vitascore? Silence stretched heavy and telling. 73, she said finally, but I was born with a 0. Tail defect sensors didn't form right. My parents burned everything on reconstruction, surgery, gene therapy, years of training. Without that, she trailed off. 10 seconds, Ethan finished for her. You'd be where Lila is. The system doesn't measure worth, Zara. It measures privilege. 5 seconds, she said, her voice softer now, almost personal. And Ethan, don't you dare slip. The gravity slammed into him like a cosmic hammer 3 times Earth's pull, making every organ feel like molten lead. His heart labored to pump blood that seemed to thicken with each beat. His lung battled ribs that yearned to collapse. Yet Ethan stood firm. In the observation booth, Zara watched his vitals with growing awe. Heart rate high, but steady, oxygen levels dipping, but stable, his stance in improbable defiance of physics. Incredible, she whispered, her tail sensors catching faint tremors through the reinforced floor. He's actually doing it. What she couldn't see was the lifetime etched into Ethan's muscle memory, hauling water up 30 flights when pumps failed, surviving nights in Nova Mumbai's gravity fluctuation zones, where black market tech was tested, training in underground fight rings, where humans learned to outmaneuver augmented foes with leverage and grit. He wasn't just enduring, he was thriving, a living rebuke to the system that branded him inferior. Underground fight pits of Nova Mumbai, where humans honed their worth against augmented adversaries, mastering physics and leverage to counter brute force. 60 seconds achieved. The automated system intoned its voice, cold as the void. Shall I initiate reduction sequence? No. Ethan gasped, each syllable a battle against the crushing weight. Push it to 90. Ethan, don't be reckless. Zara warned, her voice sharp with concern through the observation glass. Trust me, he said, locking eyes with her, his gaze steady despite the strain. And start recording. The galaxy needs to see what humans can do when the rules aren't rigged. Zara's tail flicked once her decision made. She activated her personal recorder just as Ethan began to move, not merely enduring but flowing into a slow, deliberate kata. Each motion was a study in agony, every shift of weight a gamble with his body's limits. Yet he moved with a grace that mocked the oppressive gravity, his form a silent rebellion against the forces trying to grind him into the deck. Within minutes, the feeds ignited across galactic networks. Viewership soared into 6 figures, climbing relentlessly. A first-day human cadet performing feats reserved for seasoned, graven warriors, an impossibility that shattered expectations. Comment streams erupted with disbelief, accusations of digital trickery, and demands for live verification. Far from the chamber, in a private office 3 sectors away, Director Calvaris Zorn watched his Fazari form, flickering with agitation, phasing in and out like a storm-tossed hologram. He pored over Ethan Solis's file, climate refugee Vitascore 41 sister, marked as efficiency neutral in emergency protocols. Intriguing, he murmured to a shadowy figure in the corner, his multifaceted eyes glinting with cold calculation. Very intriguing. The figure stepped forward, her uniform emblazoned with Synthocore's logo, the primary contractor behind the Vitascore algorithm. Sir, this could destabilize everything, she said, her voice taut. If a low-rank human performs this well, then we ensure the interblock trial delivers a more accurate assessment, Zorn cut in his form, solidifying to reveal a gaze sharp as a blade. Increase environmental hazard parameters for all participants below rank 50. Frame it as a safety measure. But the safety thresholds they are what I decree them to be, Zorn snapped. The Council reviews Vitascore policies in 6 months. We cannot allow outliers to taint the data before then. Back in the gravity chamber, Ethan completed his kata, lowering himself to one knee, not in defeat, but in a controlled finale, a testament to his resolve. The 90-second mark passed. Sequence complete, the system announced. Commencing standard reduction. The crushing weight eased, and Ethan became aware of a new sound beyond his labored breaths: applause. The observation deck was packed with cadets, their cheers echoing through the chamber. Even a few Gravons nodded in respect, their warrior culture, recognizing strength in any form. Zara entered as gravity normalized, offering him a hydration pack, her amber eyes gleaming with a mix of awe and exasperation. That was either the most brilliant or the most idiotic thing I've ever seen a human pull off. Can it be both? Ethan replied, accepting the pack with hands that trembled only slightly. He managed a grin. So about that coffee I promised. You just survived triple gravity, and you're thinking about stimulants. Zara's tail swished in that familiar amused arc. Fine. But if it fries my sensors, you're explaining to medical why a Sarathian overdosed on caffeine. As they left the chamber, Nora Calix observed from an upper deck, her journalist's instincts prickling. She'd come to Solarian Nexus for a routine story on the Academy's diversity initiatives, a fluff piece to fill column inches. But something deeper stirred a pattern too sharp to ignore. Opening her tablet, she cross-referenced Ethan Solis's public records with gravity chamber feeds, Vitascore databases, and medical reports from Nova Mumbai. The data painted a grim picture. Low-rank cadets failing at precisely engineered choke points, trial accidents, too convenient. Families like the Solises abandoned by algorithmic cruelty. This she whispered, her fingers already weaving query strings for a deeper dive. This is a story. Orientation dragged on with routine briefings, equipment handouts, and dormitory assignments, but the atmosphere had shifted. Cadets now looked at humans differently, some with newfound respect, others with wary suspicion, most with burning curiosity. Ethan felt their gazes like a physical weight, but his focus remained razor-sharp. The gravity chamber had been an opening salvo, a challenge to a system that reduced humanity to a number. The real war would come in the interblock trial, where the algorithm's true nature would be laid bare. As he prepared for the evening meal, his secure communicator buzzed, an encrypted message flashing across the screen. The sender's ID bore only a stylized Sentra shield, a symbol unfamiliar to him. Impressive display today, Cadet Solis. Your defiance of established parameters has been noted. The trial looms, bringing chances to unveil truth. Be ready. Sentra. Ethan deleted the message, but its words lingered like a phantom. Someone with access to the Academy's secure channels was watching, ally or adversary, he couldn't yet tell. You coming, Gravity Boy? Zara called from the doorway, her voice playful but warm. The mess hall won't wait, and I'm dying to see if human food is as dull as everyone claims. Only one way to find out, Ethan replied, pocketing the communicator with a grin. Fair warning, though, we humans pack flavor into everything. Your tail might not be ready. My tails survive solar flares and void exposure. Zara shot back, her amber eyes sparkling. I think it can handle your spices. They walked to the mess hall together. An unlikely duo, already drawing whispers and stares, the human who defied gravity and the Sarathian who tested him with her tail. By tomorrow, their story would ripple through every major hub in the Alliance. Perfect, Ethan thought. Let them watch. Let them question why a refugee from Earth's climate-ravaged slums could stand where their precious algorithms predicted he'd fall. The game was just beginning, and he was ready to upend the board. The training schedules at Solarian Nexus were deliberately randomized, a safeguard against cadets gaming the system. Ethan learned his first paired session with Zara was slated for 0430 station time in the variable gravity chamber, where conditions could shift without warning. Most cadets take weeks to ease into variable training, Zara said as they entered the prep room, her tail tracing lazy arcs in the air, sensors attuned to the chamber's electromagnetic hum. But you're not most cadets, are you? Adaptation under pressure is humanity's specialty, Ethan replied, checking the seal on his standard-issue training suit, functional, but far from the adaptive weave granted to high-rank cadets. Besides, I've got a stellar spotter. Flattery won't save you if the gravity flips mid-maneuver. Zara teased, her amber eyes sharpening into instructor mode. She explained the chamber's mechanics as they prepared. It uses phase-shifted gravity wells, not the static fields from yesterday. Expect waves, peaks, troughs shifting from 0G to 5G in seconds. Sounds like Nova Mumbai's storm shelters, Ethan said quietly, his voice tinged with memory. When the atmospheric processors failed, pressure waves would tear through the tunnels. You learned to read them, or you didn't make it. Zara's tail stilled, a sign of deep focus he was beginning to recognize. I studied the Nova Mumbai disasters in xenosociology. Survival rates were lower than they should have been. Ethan's tone sharpened an edge of old pain. Yeah, especially after Vitascore started dictating resource allocation. The prep room's lights flickered, a warning that the chamber was powering up. Through the transparent aluminum panel, gravity projectors began their eerie dance, warping the air like heat mirages. Tell me about the waves, Ethan said, pulling his focus to the present. How do Sarathians read them? Zara stepped behind him, her tail resting lightly on his shoulders. Its touch gentler than yesterday's test, almost guiding. Close your eyes. Feel. Through her sensors, she shared her perception of the gravitational fields, a connection that felt intimate, almost sacred. There she whispered, her voice close to his ear. That tug in your inner ear, that's a wave building. The pressure on your skin shifts just before it peaks. Ethan felt it subtle yet as distinct as the pressure drops before Nova Mumbai's monsoon walls. It's got a rhythm, he said, awed. Everything does if you know how to listen. Zara's tail adjusted, tracking a new distortion. My people evolved on a world with 3 moons tidal forces that could rip planets apart. We learned to dance with gravity or get crushed. And now you're teaching a clumsy human your dance, Ethan said with a half smile. Just the interesting ones, Zara replied, pulling back as the chamber door hissed open. Ready, they stepped inside, taking positions on opposite sides of the central platform. The gravity was Earth normal for now, but Ethan could sense the instability, like standing on a ship in a storm. First lesson, Zara called as the projectors hummed louder, is learning to fall. When the wave hits, don't fight, it redirect it. The first shift came without warning, gravity vanishing as Ethan's feet left the platform in null G. Instinct screamed to flail, but he forced himself to relax, remembering the oxygen-starved tunnels of Nova Mumbai, where panic was a death sentence. Good, Zara said, executing a flawless roll in the weightless void. Now watch the projectors, they signal the next wave incoming from starboard. She was right. Gravity slammed back at triple strength from the right, sending Ethan tumbling. But he tucked and rolled, using the momentum to slide across the platform instead of crashing into it. Better, Zara approved, though her voice carried the strain of her own effort. Even for a Sarathian variable, gravity was grueling. Now we up the ante. The chamber's atmospheric controls kicked in, temperature spiking 20 degrees in seconds while humidity plummeted. Ethan's throat burned with each breath of the arid air. Environmental hazards. Zara explained, her breathing slightly ragged. Standard for advanced trials. Your Vita score dictates which ones you face. Let me guess. Ethan gasped as another gravity wave hit, this time from below. Lower ranks get the worst of it. Officially, it's calibrated to species tolerances. Zara said, executing a perfect aerial flip as gravity inverted again. Unofficially, you know the truth? They trained for 2 hours, sweat-soaked and trembling by the end. Ethan learned to anticipate the major shifts, reading patterns in a way no human should in a single session. It wasn't mastery that would take years, but it was a defiance of every Vita score projection. Shower and breakfast, Zara suggested, as they staggered out of the chamber. And maybe you can finally explain this mythical coffee of yours. Deal, Ethan said, wiping sweat from his brow. But fair warning, it's strong enough to wake the dead. My tail survived your gravity training, Zara quipped. It can handle your stimulants. They parted to clean up, agreeing to meet in the cadet dining hall. Ethan lingered in the shower, letting the recycled water wash away sweat and tension. His muscles ached, but it was the ache of progress, not ruin. His quarters were stark bed desk storage terminal, but functional. As he dressed, the terminal chimed with a priority alert. Commander Varkas demanded his presence immediately. The commander's office commanded a stunning view of the nebula, its swirling gases painting a backdrop of cosmic fire. Varkas stood with his back to the door, hands clasped, gazing at the dance of newborn stars. Cadet Solus. Thank you for coming, promptly he said, without turning. Your performance yesterday has sparked a firestorm, over 12 million views and climbing. The publicity team is in chaos. Varkas turned, his cybernetic eye whirring as it locked onto Ethan. Was that your intention? Ethan met Commander Varkas's piercing gaze with unflinching honesty. My goal was to prove human potential outstrips the Vitascore system's limits. If that stirs the galaxy's attention, so be it. Varkas moved to his desk, the nebula's glow casting stark shadows across his scarred features. He gestured for Ethan to sit. Tell me about your sister. The question landed like a gravity surge, sharp and disorienting. Lila Solis, sir. Ethan said, his voice steady but laced with quiet pain. Volunteer medic, suffered neural damage in the Nova Mumbai dome breach when the emergency algorithm prioritized higher Vitascore casualties. Varkas's weathered face remained unreadable, his cybernetic eye whirring softly. You're not the first cadet to arrive with a grudge against the system. With respect, sir, it's not a grudge, it's a pattern. Ethan leaned forward, his words deliberate. Lila's one of thousands betrayed by a system that values numbers over lives. Varkas's interruption was firm, but carried a surprising gentleness. I've watched Vitascore's evolution for 15 years. What began as a triage tool morphed into a social credit machine, sidelining good soldiers whose numbers didn't match their fire. His organic eye held Ethan's a silent acknowledgement of shared frustration. Why tell me this, sir? Ethan asked, studying the commander's intent. Varkas leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur. The interblock gravity trial, 6 weeks from now, will draw billions of eyes. Council members, included the ones who uphold Vitascore's policies. Expose its manipulations during that spectacle, and the galaxy won't look away. Ethan finished the thought, his pulse quickening. It'd be undeniable. Precisely. Varkas's tone hardened, a warning edged in steel. But those profiting from the system, Director Zorn chief among them, won't take kindly to disruption. He's already watching you. I'm not afraid, Ethan said, though his chest tightened. You should be, Varkas countered. Zorn doesn't wield blasters. He uses procedure regulation algorithms. He could expel you for a misbuttoned uniform if it suits him. Play smart, cadet. Your revolution needs you alive to see it through. Understood, sir, Ethan said, his mind already racing. Anything else? Yes. Varkas's expression softened just a fraction. Cadet Vira is a rare talent with a bright future. Whatever alliance you're forging, don't let it jeopardize her career. I'd never. Ethan replied, his voice firm with conviction. Intentions are cheap, outcomes are what matter. Dismissed. Ethan left the office, his thoughts a turbulent nebula of their own. Varkas was an ally, but his warning painted a target on Ethan's back. He'd need to tread carefully, outsmarting a system designed to crush outliers like him. The dining hall buzzed with the chaotic symphony of morning species clustered at tables tailored to their needs. Atmospheric mixes for Fazari, reinforced seats for Gravons, temperature controls for Orani. Ethan spotted Zara at a neutral table, her silver-scaled tail coiled elegantly beneath her chair, 2 steaming cups waiting before her. Took the liberty of ordering your coffee, she said as he approached her, amber eyes catching the artificial dawn's light. The human vendor was stunned, a Sarathian cared. Their loss. Ethan slid into the seat across from her, noting how her scales shimmered with a subtle iridescence. How's your tail handling the brew? Like tiny starbursts along every sensor. Zara said, taking a sip, her eyes widening with mock horror. This is what humans call pleasure. Welcome to our culture, Ethan grinned. We turn survival into addiction. He paused, his tone sobering. Varkas knows why I'm here. Of course he does, Zara said, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Varkas sees everything on this station. The real question is whether he'll back you or block you. He warned me about Zorn, Ethan said, his fingers tightening around his cup. Smart move. Zorn's been steering bioassessment for 8 years. Every tweak to the Vitascore algorithm has his claws on it. Her tail twitched, a flicker of agitation. My reconstruction surgery. His department denied coverage 3 times before my parents found a loophole. But you made it here, Ethan said, meeting her gaze. Because your family had resources. How many others didn't? Zara's eyes held his, a shared fire burning in their depths. That's why I helped you yesterday, not for the show, but because someone has to prove those rankings are a lie. Before Ethan could respond, a shadow loomed over their table. Korath Vren stood before them, his crystalline skin scattering rainbows across the table, flanked by 2 Gravons, whose presence was a deliberate show of force. Solus Korath rumbled, his voice like a landslide. Impressive stunt yesterday for a human. Cadet Vren, Ethan replied, keeping his tone even. Something I can help you with. I've been studying your training footage, Korath said, his frosted gem eyes narrowing. Your combat forms are unusual for a climate refugee. The question hung like a challenge. Ethan felt Zara tense beside him, her tail uncoiling slightly, ready for trouble. I learned where I had to, Ethan said, his voice calm but unyielding. Necessity's the best teacher. Korath's gaze lingered, assessing. The trial allows paired partnerships for some events. I'm weighing my options. I've already got a partner, Ethan said, glancing at Zara. Not offering. Korath said, his laugh grinding like stone. Warning, the trial's no publicity stunt. Cadets have died chasing beyond their limits. Is that a threat? Ethan asked, his voice steady. A fact Korath said, Vitascore exists for a reason, human. Some of us don't need algorithms to see the natural order. He turned to leave, then paused. Your coffee smells like burned fuel, by the way. As the Gravons retreated, Zara exhaled her tail, relaxing. That was charming. Korath usually hides his supremacist streak better. He's rattled, Ethan said quietly. My gravity stunt shook his worldview. If a human can match Gravon training, maybe strength isn't just mass and muscle. Zara downed the last of her coffee, grimacing. This is awful, but weirdly addictive. Human culture in a nutshell. Ethan checked his schedule. Advanced tactical theory in 20. Walk with me, Zara said, standing her tail swaying. Medical reassessment. Monthly scans to ensure my reconstruction holds. Zorn's department demands endless documentation. Another layer of control, Ethan muttered. Everything's control if you squint hard enough, Zara said, her amber eyes flashing. Same time tomorrow for gravity training. Wouldn't miss it, Ethan called as she left. He noticed Nora Calix at a corner table, her tablet a pretense as she observed the room. Their eyes met briefly, a silent spark of mutual recognition before she returned to her screen. The tactical theory class unfolded in a spherical chamber, its walls alive with holographic projectors that plunged cadets into vivid simulations. Today's scenario, a mining colony uprising on a heavy gravity world, with government forces tasked to restore order without wrecking vital infrastructure. Brute force rarely wins, the instructor, a veteran Fazari whose phase-shifting form shimmered elusively, declared. Find their motivations, their pressure points. That's how you end conflicts. Ethan was paired with Silas, an Irani cadet, whose feathers flickered through colors mirroring her nerves. As they navigated the scenario, Ethan noticed the simulation's parameters shifting based on Vitascore rankings. High-ranked cadets received better intel, superior gear, more resources, while their team faced harsher conditions. It's not fair, Silas whispered, her feathers flashing anxious yellow as their simulated forces faltered. How do we win when the system expects us to fail? We adapt, Ethan said, tweaking their strategy to repurpose mining equipment as makeshift weapons. And we document every rig detail. By the end, their unorthodox approach secured a negotiated peace, not a blazing triumph, but a practical victory. The instructor's form flickered with surprise. Innovative tactics, cadets, using industrial tools for crowd control while opening backdoor negotiations. Unconventional, but effective. As they exited, Silas brushed Ethan's arm with a wingtip, her feathers warming to gold. Thank you. Most humans avoid partnering with us. They say our anxiety makes us unreliable. Anxiety's just heightened awareness, Ethan said. In the right context, it's a strength. I heard about your gravity display. Silas said, her voice tentative but hopeful. Some of us are forming a study group for cadets facing ranking challenges. Would you join? Absolutely, Ethan said. Send me the details. She nodded, her feathers brightening, and hurried off. Ethan allowed himself a grim smile. Alliances were forming bonds among those the system deemed lesser, exactly what he had hoped for. The day blurred through classes, training, and quiet observation. Ethan cataloged every instance where Vitascore skewed outcomes, equipment allocations, scenario difficulties, even lecture seating. The discrimination was subtle, always cloaked in algorithmic neutrality. That evening, he found solace in the observation lounge, a tranquil haven where the nebula's dance offered a moment to breathe. He reviewed gravity wave patterns on his tablet when a soft throat clearing broke his focus. Studying your own performance, that's either dedication or vanity, Nora Calix said, holding 2 cups of tea, their earthy aroma, a faint echo of Earth. Miss Calix, Ethan said, a wry smile tugging at his lips. I was wondering when you'd make your move. Call me Nora, she said, offering a cup and settling into a chair. Earth-grown tea thought you might miss home. Not just a social visit, I take it, Ethan said, accepting the cup. Nothing I do is purely social, Nora admitted, her sharp eyes gleaming. I've been digging into Vitascore's Reach military medical education. The patterns are ugly. Ugly's a kind word for systematic discrimination, Ethan said, his voice low but firm. Agreed, but proving it needs intent, not just outcomes. Nora sipped her tea, thoughtful. Your gravity stunt was brilliant viral fuel that's got people questioning. But shaking this system takes more than physical feats. What's your play? Ethan asked, leaning forward. Hard evidence, data testimony, proof of manipulation. Nora said, her gaze alight with purpose. I've got whispers that the trial's scoring algorithms are rigged, not just tweaked for difficulty, but designed to ensure appropriate outcomes. Ethan's pulse raced. Can you prove it? Not yet, she admitted. But someone with trial access, someone on the inside. She let the suggestion hang. You want me to spy for you? Ethan said, not a question. I want you to see that justice and journalism can't align. Nora replied. Think it over. My contacts is already in your terminal. Yes, I'm that good. Be careful, Ethan. You're stirring storms, and not everyone likes rough skies. She left him staring at the nebula, his mind a whirlwind of possibilities. Nora's offer was a dangerous spark, but it could ignite the change he thought on. A maelstrom of possibilities. Nora's offer was a dangerous spark, one that could ignite a galaxy-wide reckoning if they could prove algorithmic tampering during the interblock trial's spotlight. His communicator buzzed a soft vibration, pulling him from his thoughts. Another encrypted message from the enigmatic Centra flickered across the screen. The journalist sees truth, but her scope is narrow. The trial's corruption runs deeper than rigged scores. Hidden protocols lurk within directory structures. Seek Codex Aurora in the environmental hazard generators. Truth awaits those bold enough to uncover it. Centra, Ethan memorized the term Codex Aurora before erasing the message, its cryptic weight settling into his mind. Someone or something inside the system was feeding him secrets. But why, and why the veiled approach? His reflection in the observation port stared back a young man burdened with too many conspiracies for just 3 weeks at Solarian Nexus. But thoughts of Lila, her trembling hands, her brilliant mind, caged by Vitascore's cold judgment, steeled his resolve. The next morning's gravity training threw fresh challenges his way. Zara introduced rotational vectors, gravity twisting in spirals, rather than linear pulls in a nauseating whirl, like being trapped in a sadistic centrifuge. The trick, Zara said, demonstrating a fluid run along the chamber's curved wall, her tail guiding her balance, is to think in arcs. Your human instincts lean towards straight lines, but that'll get you killed in real combat. Everything here feels designed to kill us. Ethan grunted, trying to mimic her movement and stumbling spectacularly, his body lurching against the shifting forces. That's the point, Zara replied, her amber eyes gleaming with purpose. The Academy breaks you to rebuild you stronger. She paused, her tail sensors flaring outward. Big wave incoming. The gravity didn't just shift, it pulsed, oscillating between crushing weight and near weightlessness in brutal succession. Ethan's vision blurred as his blood struggled to flow steadily. Breathe in on the light, phase out on the heavy, Zara instructed, suddenly at his side, her tail coiling gently around his waist. Not a test now, but a lifeline. Sync your heartbeat with the rhythm. Through her touch, Ethan felt her steady biorhythm, a calm anchor amid the chaos. He mirrored it, finding a stability in their shared connection. Better, Zara said softly, her voice warm, almost tender. You learn fast for a human. I've got a hell of a teacher, Ethan replied. A faint grin breaking through his strain. Flattery again. Zara teased her tone, carrying a spark of affection. It's working. I haven't let you fall yet. They trained until exhaustion demanded a halt. Their bodies slick with sweat, their breaths ragged. As they cooled down, Ethan made a choice. Zara, I need to tell you about the trial, what I'm planning. He laid it all bare. Nora's intel. Centra's cryptic messages, his growing certainty that the trial was rigged to cement Vitascore's hierarchy. Zara listened, her tail twitching with flickers of emotion. Anger, resolve, perhaps fear. So you're going to expose it during the live broadcast, she summarized, her voice steady. Turn their spectacle into their undoing. With help, Ethan said. I can't do it alone. Obviously, Zara said with a wry smile. Humans are terrible at multitasking. Her expression sobered. This could torch our careers, Ethan. Zorn's reach spans the entire military structure. I know, he said, meeting her gaze. That's why I'm telling you now to give you an out. An out! Zara's tail lashed once sharp with defiance. Walk away, pretend I don't know. The system that almost ruined me is still crushing others. I'm in, Ethan, all in. Relief flooded him, warm as a star's glow. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Zara said, offering a hand to pull him up. We'll need more than grit to pull this off. Starting with figuring out Codex Aurora. Any ideas where to begin? Ethan asked. Actually, yes. Zara's eyes gleamed with purpose. My medical reassessment yesterday included a neural scan standard stuff, but the technician slipped up. Mentioned something about Aurora parameters for sensory appendages. Ethan's eyes widened. Environmental hazard generators need sensory data to calibrate. If Codex Aurora predicts and manipulates biological responses, they're not just rigging scores, they're engineering failures. Zara's expression hardened, her tail still with resolve. We need those medical files. Breaking into Zorn's department won't be easy. Necessary is not the same as easy. Ethan said, a grim smile tugging at his lips. Meet me at the auxiliary medical lab tonight after curfew, Zara said, moving toward the door. Bring your lock bypass programs. How'd you know I've got those? Ethan asked, half amused. Zara paused, throwing him a knowing look. You're a climate refugee who clawed into this academy with a bottom-tier Vita score. Of course, you've got illegal tech. Her tail swished playfully. And Ethan, bring some of that awful coffee. If we're risking career suicide, let's at least be awake for it. As she left, Ethan allowed himself a moment of dark humor. He'd come to Solarian Nexus planning a careful legal expose of corruption. Now he was plotting a midnight break-in with a Sarathian warrior whose tail could probably choke him out if things went south. Lila would be proud or terrified, probably both. The rest of the day he kept up appearances, attending classes, mingling with low-ranked cadets joining Silas's study group, but his mind was locked on the night ahead and the secrets of Codex Aurora. His communicator stayed silent, offering no further clues from Centra. Whatever game his mysterious benefactor was playing, Ethan was now forging his own path. As the station's lights dimmed to mimic evening, he assembled his infiltration kit, physical and digital lockpicks, a signal jammer for security cameras, and yes, a thermos of coffee strong enough to rouse a comet. His choice had been made the moment Lila's hands began to tremble. Every step since had been a charge toward this moment of truth. The interblock trial loomed weeks away, a chance to unravel the depth of the corruption and see if a human and a Sarathian could expose it without becoming casualties. Commander Varkas had warned that revolution demanded survival, but Ethan knew as he strode toward his destiny that survival sometimes meant defying the odds no algorithm could predict. Adaptation under pressure was, after all, humanity's greatest strength. The auxiliary medical lab crouched in Solarian Nexus's lower rings, where gravity generators wove subtle fluctuations most species found unsettling. It was why the overflow facility saw scant traffic after hours of detail Zara had clocked during her frequent visits. Security rotation switches in 3 minutes. She whispered, her tail pressed against the quarter wall, sensors reading faint vibrations. 2 guards, standard patrol. Ethan crouched beside her, his modified data pad humming softly. Security bypass programs, gifts from Nova Mumbai's digital underground, painted a map of electronic signatures. Cameras are looping now. They moved like phantoms, Zara's fluid grace blending with Ethan's honed stealth forged in the collapsed tunnels of his childhood. Survival had taught him to be invisible. The lab door surrendered to his lockpicks with a whisper. Inside, medical equipment thrummed with quiet menace, quantum processors lining one wall, their crystalline cores pulsing with data from countless biological scans. There, Zara said, pointing to a terminal marked with biohazard warnings. Sensory appendage analysis station. My scan was uploaded there yesterday. Ethan plugged in his data pad, hitting military-grade encryption walls instantly. This'll take time and coffee. Zara produced the thermos, pouring 2 cups with a smirk. You said it sharpens focus. Ethan grinned despite the tension. Picking up human vices already. Adaptation under pressure, remember? Zara took a sip, her tail sensors flaring slightly. Still tastes like burnt fuel, but the clarity's intriguing. As his programs chipped away at the encryption, the lab's sterile chill pressed in, optimized for machines, not life. Zara moved closer, her natural warmth a quiet comfort. Tell me about Lila, she said softly. Not the records, her. Ethan's fingers paused on the data pad, memory surfacing. She's brilliant. Triple doctorate by 25, xenobiology, emergency medicine, social dynamics. Could have worked anywhere, but she chose disaster relief. His voice grew rough. She believed expertise meant duty. During the Nova Mumbai dome breaches, she stayed when others fled, setting up field hospitals, training locals in triage. He swallowed hard. The night it all went wrong, she was leading 5 emergency teams. When the processors failed and pressure waves hit, the algorithm saw her Vita score 43 and left her for last. Zara's tail curled around his wrist, a gentle anchor. Hypoxic brain injury. Ethan continued, motor cortex hit hardest. Her mind's still sharp, but her hands, she can't operate anymore. Barely writes. Reconstruction therapy exists, but you need a VITA score of 60 or higher to qualify. Same as my surgery, Zara said, bitterness edging her voice. The system builds its own prophecies, rank low, stay low. The datapad chimed softly. Access granted. Ethan said, diving into the directories, chasing Centra's hint. Codex Aurora. There. The file structure stopped them cold. It wasn't just medical data. It was a chilling predictive model tying biological markers to psychological breaking points under stress. Gods of the Void, Zara whispered, reading over his shoulder. They're not just measuring bodies. They're mapping how to shatter us. Thousands of entries scroll past, linking neurotransmitter levels to tail sensor density with failure probabilities under tailored conditions, each tagged with gravity trial calibration protocol. Look, Ethan said, highlighting a section. For humans with my profile, rapid atmospheric cycling and rotational gravity over 3.5 G to induce vestibular failure in 4.7 minutes. Zara found her own entry, her tail lashing with fury. Sarathians with reconstructed appendages, 78% spatial awareness loss under specific electromagnetic interference. They know exactly how to break us. Not break, Ethan corrected, his voice grim. Humiliate. These parameters ensure failure that looks natural proof. Low VITA scores belong at the bottom. They downloaded it, all the datapad's quantum storage straining under the weight. As Ethan prepared to disconnect, another directory caught his eye. Contingency protocols. Trial override authorization. What's a trial override, he asked. Zara leaned closer, her breath warm against his neck. Emergency shutdowns. If someone's near death, operators can intervene. She froze, her tail going rigid. Movement in the corridor. 30 seconds out. Ethan's fingers flew downloading the override files as Zara pressed her tail flat against the door, sensing vibrations like sonar. Single individual heavy steps, rare grab on likely, not a standard patrol. Almost done, Ethan muttered, the progress bar inching forward. 10 seconds, Zara hissed, muscles taut. Window, 6th floor, drop into unstable gravity fields. You want to risk that? Ethan asked, eyes wide. Better than explaining stolen classified data, Zara shot back. The download finished as the door locks began cycling. Ethan yanked his connection free and joined Zara at the window, its transparent aluminum revealing a dizzying plunge into the station's industrial depths. On 3, he started. Now Zara countered, her tail wrapping around his waist as she triggered the emergency release. The window burst outward and they tumbled into the void just as the lab door hissed open behind them. For a fleeting moment, they fell through standard gravity, then hit a chaotic intersection of clashing fields. Up, twisted sideways, down became diagonal, and Ethan's stomach churned as his senses fought to parse the shifting orientations. But Zara's tail held firm, her sensors reading the fields faster than any human could. Zara's tail sensors read the chaotic gravity fields with a speed no human could match, her voice cutting through the rush of air. Left, she shouted. Roll left now. They tumbled through a null-G pocket, the brief weightlessness letting them adjust their trajectory, narrowly dodging a maintenance drone that hummed past like a predator. Below, or was it above, loading platforms loomed as potential havens. There's a frayed cushion field, Zara called, pointing with her tail, its silver scales glinting in the dim light. But we need to. A spotlight flared to life, its beams slicing through the darkness, tracking their fall. Security had found them. Hold on, Ethan said, his hand darting to his belt for a small device. The signal jammer had one charge left, meant for cameras, but spotlight trackers used similar frequencies. He triggered it as they plunged through another gravity intersection, the world twisting wildly. The light stuttered, losing them for precious seconds. Zara seized the moment, angling their descent toward a cargo net strung between platforms. They hit hard, the net's smart fibers absorbing the impact, cradling their fall. For a heartbeat, they lay tangled together in the net, their breaths ragged, adrenaline coursing like wildfire through their veins. Zara's tail, still looped around Ethan's waist, felt warm and steady, its sensors pulsing faintly against his skin, a silent reassurance in the chaos. Her amber eyes met his, close enough that he could see the faint flecks of gold in them, her breath mingling with his in the cool air. That she panted, a wry smile tugging at her lips, was insane but effective. Ethan carefully disentangled himself, helping Zara free herself from the net's embrace, their hands brushing briefly a spark of connection in the shared danger. "We need to get to quarters before they lock down the station," he said, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. "Split up," Zara suggested, her tail uncoiling reluctantly. "Meet tomorrow for training. We'll compare notes when it's safe." He nodded, then caught her hand before she could slip away. "Zara, thank you. You didn't have to risk this." Her amber eyes softened, the fierce warrior giving way to something warmer, more vulnerable. "Yes, I did," she said, her voice low but firm. "What they've done to you, to me, to countless others. Someone has to end it." She squeezed his hand, her touch lingering. "Besides, your coffee's growing on me. Can't let you get expelled before I crack why humans love that sludge." They parted, taking separate paths back to cadet quarters. Ethan navigated maintenance corridors he'd memorized in his first week, a lesson from Nova Mumbai's tunnels: always know your exits. His mind churned as he moved. Codex Aurora wasn't just rigging, it was psychological warfare cloaked as science. They knew precisely how each species would falter, calibrating systems to guarantee it. The interblock trial wasn't about testing ability, it was a stage for predetermined failure. But now he held proof. The question was how to wield it. In his quarters, Ethan encrypted the stolen data, scattering copies across hidden partitions, each safeguarded by layers of code. As he worked, his communicator buzzed a new message from Centra: impressive infiltration. "You found Aurora but missed its twin Codex Umbra control algorithms for scoring not just hazards, but the very definition of success. The trial nears, and both systems will be active. Choose your moment wisely." Centra: two patterns, two webs of control, environmental traps to force failure, scoring algorithms to twist even victories into defeats. The precision of it turned Ethan's anger cold. This wasn't prejudice. It was engineered oppression. Sleep eluded him that night, his dreams haunted by visions of falling through warped gravity, while Lila's trembling hands reached for surgical tools she could no longer wield. Morning found him hollow but resolute. The dining hall thrummed with unusual tension, whispers of a security breach rippling through the crowd, though details remained vague. Ethan collected his breakfast proteins, rationed to his Vita score naturally, and settled at his usual table. Nora Calix appeared moments later, sliding into the seat across from him with the effortless grace of a seasoned journalist. "Interesting evening," she said, her tone light but probing. "Don't know what you're talking about," Ethan replied, keeping his expression neutral. "Of course not," Nora said, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Hypothetically, if someone accessed classified trial protocols, I'd be very interested in swapping notes." She slid a small data chip across the table. Ethan palmed it smoothly. "Hypothetically, they'd want media protection before sharing." "Already arranged," Nora said, leaning closer. 3 major networks will broadcast simultaneously if we deliver verified data. The Council's Vitascore vote is in 8 weeks. The trial's in 3. Timing's everything. Timing and survival. Ethan corrected, his voice low. "They know how to break people, Nora specifically, personally." Her expression sharpened. "You found predictive protocols." "Hypothetically," Ethan said, a grim smile flickering. "We need allies, people to watch our backs during the trial." "I'll be in touch," Nora said, standing. "And Ethan, whatever you found, I hope you made copies. Things tend to vanish around here." After she left, Silas approached her, Orani feathers flashing nervous yellow. "Ethan, would you?" "Sit," he said, gently gesturing to a chair. "What's wrong?" "It's the study group," she said, huddling smaller. "Some are pulling out scared. Rumors say low-rank cadets who stand out get reassigned to frontier posts. Dangerous ones. Let them go," Ethan said firmly. "Fear's human, but those who stay will make sure they're ready for anything." "You really think we can change things?" Silas asked, her voice trembling with fragile hope. "The system only works if we buy into it," Ethan said, meeting her wide eyes. "Every time someone like you beats their ranking, it cracks their narrative. The trials broadcast to billions. If a few of us exceed their expectations, the galaxy might start asking questions." "Yes," Silas said, her feathers shifting to determined blue. "I see it now. I'll rally the others. Those who stay will be ready." Morning training with Zara felt heavier. Their shared secret, a silent weight. She pushed him harder, introducing microgravity combat techniques demanding absolute trust. In null G momentum is everything, she explained, her tail guiding his spinning form through the void. One wrong push and you're adrift. But with a partner who knows your rhythm, they moved as one, a deadly dance of perfect synchronization. Her strength outmatched his, but he countered with precision. Where his flexibility faltered, her tail became the pivot. "You're overthinking," Zara said after he mistimed a maneuver. "Feel the flow. Easy for someone with built-in gravity sensors," Ethan grumbled. "Then borrow mine," she said, pulling him close, her tail wrapping around their waists, a firm yet intimate tether. "Close your eyes. Feel what I feel." The connection was electric, deepened by their shared rebellion the night before. Through her sensors, Ethan sensed the gravity fields as living currents pulsing with intent. His body became an extension of hers, moving in harmony with forces he couldn't see. "Better," Zara murmured, a smile in her voice. "Much better." They trained until exhaustion forced a pause. As they cooled down, Korath Vren entered his crystalline bulk, casting prismatic shadows. "Impressive synchronization," he rumbled. "For mixed species." "Thank you," Zara replied, her tone icy but polite. "Trial pairings posted this morning." Korath continued. "Curious combinations. Some might call them deliberately challenging." Ethan kept his face neutral, though his gut tightened. "Meaning, see for yourself," Korath said, his crystalline features unreadable as he left. They rushed to a terminal. The pairings were worse than Ethan feared: low-rank cadets saddled with incompatible partners or left solo for team events. "They're not even subtle," Zara snarled, her tail coiling tight with suppressed rage. Arani paired with high-mass species for speed, trials, reconstructed Sarathians in electromagnetic zones, and humans. Ethan scanned the list, his name flagged for high-risk categories far beyond baseline human limits. "They want us to fail spectacularly or die trying." "We prepare," Ethan said, already mapping counter strategies. "And we make sure everyone else is ready too. They want a show. We'll give them one, just not the one they expect." That evening, he gathered the study group, 15 cadets, all Vita score 50 us or below, in a secure room buzzing with nervous energy. "You've seen the pairings," Ethan began. "They're built to humiliate us, but they slipped up. They posted them early. We have 3 weeks to turn their trap into our triumph." "How?" asked a young Fazari, his face shifting, marred by a childhood injury. "By training for their exact playbook: hazards, mismatched partners, rigged scoring," Ethan said, activating a holographic display of the stolen data, though its source carefully obscured. "Every species has weaknesses they exploit, but also strengths they don't want us to find." The room erupted in questions. Ethan and Zara answered as a team, outlining regimens to push each cadet to their limits while dodging Codex Aurora's predicted breaking points. "This is dangerous," Silas said softly. "If they realize we know, then we're subtle," Zara cut in, her tail sweeping the room for emphasis. "Train separately, share techniques quietly. Official prep times for show, real work happens in private. They expect us to fail alone. We'll succeed together." Over the next weeks, their underground network grew. Cadets who'd never spoken crossed species lines, sharing secrets. Humans learned Fazari phase shift math. Orani taught anxiety control to Gravans facing agility trials reconstructed. Sarathians coached others through electromagnetic interference. Ethan pushed himself hardest, spending every spare moment in gravity chambers or poring over stolen protocols. His body adapted with the relentless grit that had carried humanity through climate collapse and cosmic migration. But the partnerships were what mattered most. He trained with every low-rank cadet, willing to learn, memorizing their strengths and limits. In public sessions, he played the struggling rookie. In private, he shattered every Codex Aurora projection. "You're going to burn out," Zara warned during a grueling 6G session far beyond the trial's demands. "Even human adaptation has limits." "The limit's what we accept." Ethan gasped, muscles screaming as he moved. "Besides, I've got the best spotter in the galaxy." "Flattery again," Zara said, her tail steadying him through a brutal maneuver, sensors reading his exhaustion and adjusting support. "At this rate, I'll start thinking you actually like me. Would that be so bad?" The words slipped out, unguarded, raw. Zara paused, focusing on the exercise, then answered softly. "No, it wouldn't be bad at all." 2 nights before the trial, Sintra struck again, its message-chilling final warning. Zorn has greenlit lethal parameters for select participants. Safety overrides disabled for Vita scores below 40 in the finale. Your stolen data holds override codes. Use them wisely. The revolution demands survival. Good luck, Ethan Solis. Centra. Ethan stared, dread pooling in his gut. Lethal parameters, they weren't just rigging the game. They were willing to kill to preserve their narrative. He found Zara in the observation lounge, gazing at the nebula's swirling hues. Without a word, he showed her the message. Murderers, she whispered, her tail lashing violently. They're murderers in suits and algorithms. We can stop them, Ethan said. The override codes can save lives, but the system still stands. Zara turned, her amber eyes blazing with fierce determination. We need more than survival, Ethan. We need exposure so undeniable they can't bury it. During the finale, with billions watching, we don't just beat their trap, we rip it open, show the galaxy how the parameters were set, why, and who gave the orders. That means hacking the control systems mid-trial. Ethan said, the audacity sinking in. Yes, Zara said, stepping closer, taking his hands in hers, her touch warm and resolute. It's insane, dangerous, probably illegal, but it's the only way to force real change. Ethan studied her, this extraordinary woman who'd become his partner in rebellion. Her strength, her fire, her unwavering resolve, it was more than he'd dared hope for. Who'd risked everything to stand beside him, who'd become far more than an ally, a partner, a spark in the dark. We could lose everything, Ethan said, his voice low, the weight of their choice pressing hard. We've already lost everything to their system, Zara replied, her amber eyes fierce with conviction. This is about taking it back, her tail curled around their joined hands, its warmth a silent vow, binding them in shared defiance. Together, together, Ethan echoed, sealing their pact with a nod, his heart steady despite the storm ahead. The night before the inter-block gravity trial, sleep eluded Ethan. He sat in his Spartan quarters, poring over the stolen data one last time, committing override codes and system weaknesses to memory. Tomorrow, billions would watch. Tomorrow, the galaxy could change. A soft knock broke his focus. Opening the door, he found Zara in civilian clothes, her usual armor traded for a simple tunic that softened her fierce edges. Couldn't sleep either, she asked, her voice carrying the weight of their shared stakes. Too much on the line, Ethan admitted, stepping aside to let her in. Then let's not waste the night, Zara said, holding up a thermos with a wry smile. I tried making coffee, probably terrible, but I figured we deserved one last normal moment before the chaos. They sat close in his cramped quarters, sharing the bitter brew, in a silence thick with unspoken nerves. The coffee was as awful as promised, but its warmth grounded them. Finally, Zara spoke, her voice soft but resolute. Whatever happens tomorrow, Ethan, meeting you changed everything. Not just this conspiracy, but how I see what's possible. Zara, he started, but she cut him off, her tail brushing his hand, a gentle tether that sent a quiet thrill through him. Let me finish, she said, her eyes holding his with unguarded intensity. My whole life I've accepted limits. The surgery, the rankings, the assumptions. You showed me acceptance is a choice that we can demand better. We showed each other, Ethan corrected, his voice thick with gratitude. I couldn't have done this without you. Then let's make sure we both survive to see what's next. She leaned closer, resting her forehead against his, her breath warm, her presence a steady anchor in the storm. The moment felt fragile, electric, their shared resolve weaving them closer than ever. Promise me, Ethan, whatever happens in that arena, we both walk out. I promise, he said, his voice a vow. We both walk out and we bring the truth with us. They lingered, their foreheads touching, until dawn's first light crept through the station's viewports. The interblock gravity trial loomed mere hours away, a chance to shatter a system built on lies. As Zara rose to prepare, she paused at the door, her tail swishing with a mix of determination and playfulness. For what it's worth, your coffee's still terrible, but I'm starting to crave it anyway. Ethan laughed, the sound a rare release amidst the tension. Adaptation under pressure. Something like that, Zara said, her smile a blend of promise and defiance. See you in the arena, gravity boy. Alone again, Ethan donned his trial suit, standard issue, no perks for a low-rank cadet. Hidden in its lining were data chips holding their hard-won evidence, ready to upload when the moment struck. His reflection in the mirror showed a man who'd come seeking vengeance for Lila, but found a greater cause, systemic injustice demanding a systemic answer. For you, Lila, he whispered to the stars, and for everyone they've written off. The revolution was about to ignite. The interblock gravity trial arena sprawled like a technological coliseum, its massive holographic dome blazing with light visible across half Solarian nexus broadcasting to billions galaxy-wide. The arena floor was a marvel of engineering modular platforms that reshaped in seconds gravity generators, weaving fields of crushing force or weightless void. Ethan stood in the staging area, his suit's biometric sensors already feeding data to the judges' panels. Around him, cadets from every species prepared gravans performing strength rituals, their crystalline bodies humming with harmonic resonance. Fazari flickering nervously between solid and translucent. Sarathians stretching their tails, sensors probing the arena's electromagnetic pulse. Remember, Zara murmured beside him, her voice barely cutting through the crowd's roar. The control booth is northern section 3rd level. In the finale's chaos, security will focus on the floor. You sure you can handle the environmental controls while I upload the data? Her tail brushed his hand, a fleeting touch that sent warmth through his rising anxiety, grounding him in their shared purpose. I've been wrangling environmental controls since I was 8, Ethan said, a faint smile breaking through. My parents' clinic had manual overrides for power failures. Attention competitors. Commander Varkas's voice thundered through the arena, commanding silence. Welcome to the 43rd Interblock Gravity Trial. Today you'll showcase your species' peak abilities under extreme conditions. Medical teams are on standby. Safety protocols are in effect. Ethan caught the lie in that last claim. The stolen data revealed disabled safety overrides for low-rank cadets in the finale. How many accidents had been deliberate eliminations? First event Varkas continued adaptive terrain navigation. Cross the field as platforms shift and gravity fluctuates. Speed and stability score equally. The arena floor transformed, platforms rising and falling like waves in a metallic sea, gravity distortions shimmering like heat mirages marking pockets of crushing force and null G zones. Low ranks to the starting line, a judge called the order deliberate. Ethan knew it, let the inferior cadets fail publicly before the elite showed how it was done. He took his place beside Silas, her Irani feathers, cycling through nervous patterns. Trust your training, he told her quietly, not their projections. 5-4. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the arena's rhythm. The platforms moved chaotically to the untrained eye, but he'd spent 3 weeks studying their algorithms. Codex Aurora predicted human destabilization within 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, begin. Ethan launched forward as the first platform tilted. Behind him, cadets stumbled as gravity shifted unexpectedly, but he'd anticipated the pattern. He flowed across the shifting terrain using momentum to glide where others fought. When a platform vanished, he was already airborne, reading vibrations through his boots. A Nulgi pocket meant to send him spinning came a shortcut as he tucked and rolled through it. Remarkable adaptation from human cadet Solace, a commentator noted skepticism lacing their tone, though perhaps luck, not skill. Beside him, Silas struggled, the gravity shifts triggering her species' vertigo as designed. Yet she fought on using the anxiety techniques they'd drilled. When a violent shift nearly sent her over an edge, Ethan grabbed her wing without breaking stride. Together, he said, and she nodded, understanding. They moved as one, his stability anchoring her agility, her guidance shaping their leaps. They crossed the finish line in the top third, not dazzling, but far beyond predictions. The crowd's surprise echoed in the air. Intriguing interspecies cooperation, the commentator observed, though it won't help in solo events. The morning escalated with relentless challenges. Temperature spikes, pressure, drops, electromagnetic interference, each hazard tailored to exploit low-rank weaknesses, while high-rank cadets faced oddly compatible trials. To the crowd, it looked like natural hierarchy. To Ethan, it was scripted theater. During a break, Korath Vren approached his massive graven form, casting prismatic shadows. You're performing above parameters, he rumbled. It's drawing attention. Is that a threat? Ethan asked, his tone even. An observation, Korath said, his crystalline face unreadable. I've studied your sessions with Vera. Your synergy suggests intense preparation. The electromagnetic events next calibrated for reconstructed Sarathians. Your strategy won't be enough. Why tell me this? Ethan pressed. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Korath's features. Because I nearly died in yesterday's safety test. Parameters set to induce cardiac crystallization in gravons. If my trainer hadn't caught it, he trailed off. Maybe some hierarchies aren't as natural as they claim. Before Ethan could respond, the next event was called Solo Competitors, Electromagnetic Interference with Variable Gravity, Zara's category. She took the field with 9 other Sarathians, all bearing signs of reconstruction. The arena crackled with rising charge, her tail sensors already twitching. Electromagnetic hazard activating in 30 seconds, the announcer declared. Maintain position on platforms while navigating gravity wells. Ethan's hands clenched, the stolen data flashing in his mind, frequencies tuned to disrupt reconstructed nerve pathways, risking permanent damage. But Zara was ready. As the field activated with a sound like tearing metal, 3 Sarathians stumbled, their sensors overloaded. Zara moved differently, letting the interference flow through her, using Fazari meditation techniques to adapt. Her tail didn't fight the signals, it wove them into a sonar-like map of the gravity fields. She danced through crushing zones and null pockets with breathtaking grace, her reconstructed sensors turning a weapon into a tool. Fascinating, the commentator breathed. Cadet Vera's using the interference as a navigation aid. When she reached the finished platform, the arena fell silent. Then a single clap broke the quiet and eliminated Sarathian, tears streaming down her face. Others joined a swelling tide, recognizing not just victory, but transformation. Disability into strength. Did you teach her that? Karath asked quietly. She taught herself, Ethan said. I just helped her see it was possible. Korath was silent for a long moment. The finale will be different. They won't tolerate another upset. Be ready. The day pressed on each event, tightening the screws. Low-rank cadets defied expectations, but hazards grew harsher, scoring algorithms stricter. Yet their underground network held strong. Cadets adapted, collaborated, survived. By evening, the impossible unfolded. 30% of low-rank competitors qualified for the finale, triple the historical rate. In the VIP booth, Director Zorn's Fazari form flickered with agitation, his rapid consultations betraying his unease. Ladies and gentlemen, Varkas announced as sunset painted the dome in vivid hues, you've witnessed extraordinary feats today. Now comes the ultimate challenge, the gauntlet, all hazards, all gravitational extremes, a direct contest for the championship. The arena reconfigured into its most complex form, multi-level platforms, unpredictable gravity fields, environmental hazards poised to strike. Most telling was the medical team's deployment clustered around low-rank sections where casualties were expected. They're not even hiding it, Zara said, joining Ethan in the staging area, her tail tense. Look at the medical pattern. They're betting on our failure. Ethan checked his hidden data chips one last time. You ready for this? No, Zara admitted, a faint smile breaking through. But that's never stopped us. We've got 3 minutes before security reacts, Ethan said. The upload has to be done by then. It will be, Zara said, her eyes steady. He wanted to say more about what she meant to him, about the future they were fighting for, but the words caught in his throat. She seemed to understand, her tail brushing his hand again, a quiet promise. After she said softly, we'll have time for everything after. Final call, the announcer boomed. All qualifiers to starting positions. 40 cadets took the field, ranked by Vita score. Ethan and Zara stood in the lowest tier, surrounded by their trained allies, while high-ranked competitors above them prepared with effortless confidence. The gauntlet runs for 30 minutes, Varkas explained. Points for distance, hazards overcome, and eliminations. Dangers escalate per safety protocols. Low-rank cadets exchange knowing glances, their silent defiance cutting through the tension. The safety protocols were a lie deliberately disabled for their tier. Begin. The arena erupted into chaos, platforms lurching in patterns crafted to force collisions. Gravity didn't ease in gentle waves, but snapped with bone-shattering ferocity, a brutal dance designed to break the unworthy. Ethan moved with fierce purpose, not toward the visible goal, but to a maintenance hatch he'd scouted in prior events. Around him, the underground network's training shown low-rank cadets moved in tight, coordinated groups, shielding each other from hazards meant to isolate and destroy. Temperature spike incoming, Sector 7 Silas called her Orani anxiety, now a razor-sharp awareness. 40 degrees in 10 seconds. Their group veered from the kill zone, leaving high-ranked competitors to face the unexpected heat alone. For the first time, the system's artificial selection backfired. Solus Korath Vren's voice boomed through the chaos, the Gravon trap between 2 closing platforms, gravity crushing him from both sides. The scenario was tailored for Gravon elimination, Crystalline bodies could shatter under precise pressure points. Ethan didn't hesitate, abandoning his path to slide beneath the converging platforms. Korath's mass was immense, but gravity was negotiable with the right leverage. Push against the field gradient, Ethan instructed, bracing himself as a living fulcrum. Now, together they broke free, just as the platform slammed shut, a heartbeat from disaster. Korath stared, his crystalline eyes wide with shock. Why? Because we're not here to swap one hierarchy for another, Ethan said, his voice fierce. We're here to tear them all down. Move. They parted as electromagnetic interference flooded the arena, signaling the lethal phase's onset. Ethan saw low-rank cadets faltering under the combined hazards, each attack surgically precise. Time to act. He reached the maintenance hatch just as Zara arrived from the opposite direction, her tail twitching with signs of sensor overload, but her amber eyes burning with unyielding resolve. Security's distracted, she reported, voice taut. Multiple emergencies in Sector 3, we go now. They slipped through the hatch into the arena's substructure, the control booth looming ahead, guarded by security unprepared for threats from within the trial. Two guards, Zara whispered, her tail sensors picking up heat signatures. I've got them. She moved like liquid shadow, her tail extending to its full sinuous length. The guards never saw her coming. Sarathian tail techniques, classified as non-lethal, dropped them unconscious in seconds with surgical precision. Remind me never to piss you off, Ethan muttered, his fingers already dancing over the control terminal. Too late, Zara shot back, her voice thick with fury as she took position at the environmental controls. I'm already livid. Ethan initiated the upload, stolen data flooding the arena's broadcast system. Codex Aurora, Codex Umbra. Deliberate parameter manipulations disabled safety protocols. Beyond raw files, they'd included damning analysis charts exposing how Vitascore engineered its outcomes. Testimonies from past accidents, financial records tracing profits to those upholding the hierarchy. Upload at 30%, Ethan reported. How's the arena worse? Zara said, her hands flying over the controls. They've triggered lethal parameters across low-rank sectors. I'm trying to override, but... She cursed in her native tongue, a sharp melodic snarl. Password protected. I've got the codes, Ethan said, splitting his focus to feed her the override sequences while maintaining the upload. Sector 5, First Silas is there. Monitors showed the chaos below, low-rank cadets collapsing as hazards pushed beyond survivable limits. But something else emerged, high-rank competitors stepping in to help. Korath's example spreading like wildfire. Upload at 60%, Ethan said. Come on, security alert, Zara warned, her tail rigid. They've noticed the overrides at 60 seconds tops. That's all we need, Ethan said, his fingers a blur as he compressed the remaining data. Prep for wide broadcast. Ethan Zara's voice shifted, urgent and strange. Look at the medical deployment. He glanced at the tactical display and his blood froze. Medical teams weren't rushing to aid fallen cadets. They were pulling back and acting a sector containment protocol. They're going to let them die, he breathed. Not if I can help it, Zara growled, abandoning finesse. Her tail slammed into the manual override panel, sparks flying as she shattered the safety lockouts. Get that data uploaded. I'll keep them breathing. Upload at 90%, Ethan said, heart pounding. Almost there, the door exploded inward, security forces storming through, weapons raised. But they hesitated, the control room's monitors blazing with the uploaded truth shaking their resolve. Step away from the terminals, the lead guard ordered, his voice wavering. 95%, Ethan said calmly. You can shoot us, but the truth's already out. Look at your screens. Across the galaxy, billions saw the same data. Social networks ignited with outrage, the arena's silence broken only by Commander Varkas's stunned pause, his eyes fixed on evidence of systematic murder, masked as merit. 98%, Ethan announced. Stand down. Director Zorn materialized in the doorway, his Fazari form solid with barely contained rage. I'll handle this personally, Director. The lead guard protested. The broadcast is illegal dissemination of classified data. These terrorists, Zorn stepped toward the terminal, but Zara's tail whipped out, coiling around his wrist with unyielding strength. No assault on a council official, Zorn noted coldly. Another charge to add. 100%, Ethan declared. Upload complete. The arena screens erupted with the final file financial records tying Zorn's personal wealth to companies profiting from Vitascore contracts for its expansion plans to make it mandatory for all galactic citizens. You've destroyed everything, Zorn snarled, his composed mask shattering. Order, stability, progress. We've destroyed profit built on suffering. Ethan countered, his voice steady as steel. And we're not done. He triggered a final protocol, an improvisation born of the medical team's betrayal. Every safety system in the arena activated at once. Gravity normalized hazards, shut down emergency platforms extended to catch falling cadets. Below, cheers erupted as competitors realized they were safe. The real victory unfolded beyond the arena. On a billion screens, citizens saw how they'd been categorized, limited, sacrificed for algorithmic efficiency. This won't stand, Zorn warned. The council will. The council will be too busy explaining why they allowed this. Nora Calix interrupted, striding in with a camera crew already broadcasting. Director Zorn cared to comment on the 17 trial deaths matching Codex Aurora's lethality predictions. Zorn's form flickered wildly, a Fazari stress response before he vanished, leaving only disturbed air. Well, Nora said, turning to Ethan and Zara, that was dramatic. Though not as dramatic as the council chambers right now, emergency session are called Vitascore suspension on the table. She smiled. You two just changed the galaxy. We just told the truth. Ethan corrected, exhaustion crashing over him like a tidal wave. Others changed the galaxy by listening. Varkus's voice echoed through the arena. Due to unprecedented circumstances, the 43rd Interblock Gravity Trial is suspended. All competitors receive full honors. Medical teams, priority response to all sectors. Come on, Zara said, taking Ethan's hand, her touch a quiet anchor. Our friends need us. They emerged into controlled chaos, medical teams scrambling to treat casualties, none fatal thanks to their intervention. Low and high-rank cadets worked side by side, the system's artificial barriers dissolved by a shared trauma and revelation. Korath approached his massive form, moving carefully through the crowd. Solus Vera, he said, inclining his head in a grave-on gesture of deep respect. I owe you both a debt. We all do. No debts, Ethan said firmly. Just promise to remember what you learned today. Impossible to forget, Korath replied, his gaze shifting as Silas approached, supported by two Orani. Excuse me. My strength might finally be useful. He moved to aid the injured, leaving Ethan and Zara in a fleeting pocket of calm amid the storm. So Zara said, her tail swaying with a mix of exhaustion and relief. We survived. Both of us, as promised. Barely, Ethan said, feeling the adrenaline crash hit hard, weeks of fear and preparation unraveling. Zara, what you did, taking on those controls, breaking the lockouts. It was nothing compared to what you did, she said, stepping closer, her amber eyes soft with something deeper than gratitude. You gave people hope, showed them change is possible. We showed them together, Ethan said, reaching up to touch her face, marveling that they were still standing. I couldn't have, she silenced him with a kiss. Her lips warm and fierce, a collision of defiance and tenderness that stopped time. Her tail wrapped around them both, its scales a protective embrace, a promise woven into every sensor's pulse. The arena's renewed cheers faded, the universe shrinking to just them, two rebels who'd defied gravity and fate. When they parted breathless, they shared a smile despite the chaos. So Ethan managed, still think my coffee's terrible. The worst, Zara confirmed, her tail tightening briefly, a playful spark in her eyes. But I'm addicted now to the coffee, among other things. What happens next? Ethan asked, glancing at their allies. The council might suspend Vitascore, but systems like this don't die quietly. Then we keep fighting, Zara said, her voice resolute. Legally, through proper channels this time. We've proven change is possible. Now we make it permanent together. Always together, Ethan agreed, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Nora appeared, her camera crew discreetly avoiding their moment. Hate to interrupt, but you've got a dozen interview requests. Also, the council wants you on their reform committee. Tell them we'll be there, Ethan said. But first we need to check on our friends. They spent hours in the medical bay visiting injured cadets, coordinating with the underground network that had made this possible. The revolution hadn't ended with the broadcast, it was just beginning. Watching former rivals unite, seeing Silas organize trauma support groups, witnessing Korath use his strength to rebuild rather than dominate. Ethan felt something he hadn't since Lila's injury, hope. In a quiet moment, his communicator buzzed with Centra's final message. Well done, Ethan Solus. The truth is in motion. But beware, Codex Aurora and Umbra were symptoms. The disease runs deeper. When you're ready to dig further, no, even algorithms can grow a conscience. Centra. He showed it to Zara, who read it with a thoughtful tilt of her head. Our mystery benefactor drops a clue at last, she mused. An AI with a conscience. Something for tomorrow, Ethan said. Tonight we've earned a celebration. Coffee, something stronger, Zara countered, taking his arm with a grin. I hear Fasari spice wine works wonders for processing trauma. Come on, Gravity Boy, let's see if you handle liquor better than environmental hazards. As they walked toward the station's social district, the arena screens still blazed with evidence of systemic corruption. Across the galaxy, protests flared demanding reform. The council scrambled to quell outrage centuries in the making. But for Ethan, the personal victory burned brightest. He'd come to Solarian Nexus seeking vengeance for Lila, fueled by anger and loss. He'd found something greater: allies, purpose, and a love that transcended species. The system that had broken his sister was crumbling, but more than that, people like her now had a shot at the future they deserved. The revolution had demanded sacrifice, courage, and brutal truth. Yet as Zara's tail curled affectionately around his waist, a quiet promise in its warmth, Ethan knew the truest victory was simpler. They had survived together, and tomorrow would outshine yesterday. The gravity of change, it seemed, was something even humans could master. Even humans could master. The weeks after the trial blurred into a whirlwind of hearings, interviews, and urgent reforms. The galaxy watched riveted as the council scrambled to confront decades of systemic discrimination baked into Vitascore's cold algorithms. But Ethan's mind drifted to a deeper enigma: who or what was Centra? In the newly formed Reform Committee chambers, he sat half listening to debates over implementation timelines, his thoughts tangled in clues. An AI with a conscience wielding access to classified systems, anticipating their needs with eerie precision. Cadet Sulla's counselor, Thien's voice cut through, pulling him back. Your thoughts on the Universal Baseline Initiative? Ethan straightened, aware of the recording devices capturing every syllable. It's a strong start, counselor, but we're dodging the real issue. The infrastructure behind Vitascore assessment algorithms, data collection, automated decisions, it's all still there, lying dormant. His voice was steady, resolute. We can't just patch the surface. Surely you're not suggesting we scrap algorithmic systems entirely? Another counselor interjected, her tone sharp. Modern civilization runs on automation. I'm saying we need to scrutinize who codes those systems and why, Ethan replied, meeting her gaze unflinchingly. Vitascore didn't build itself. People made choices, wrote parameters, shaped outcomes. Until we tackle that human element, we're only treating symptoms. Zara, seated beside him, leaned forward, her tail coiling with quiet intensity. The Sarathian delegation backs Cadet Solus, she said, her voice clear as a blade. We've seen neutral tech weaponized against entire populations. Oversight's not enough. We need transparency. The debate dragged on for hours, progress carved in cautious agreements and hard-won compromises. Vital work, but Ethan felt time slipping away. Director Zorn had vanished, taking key allies with him. Somewhere in the galaxy, the architects of oppression were regrouping, plotting their next move. That evening, Ethan found Nora Calix in her temporary office aboard Solarian Nexus, surrounded by holographic displays pulsing with data streams from across the stars. The journalist looked weary, but unyielding, her eyes sharp with purpose. Tell me you've got something, Ethan said, skipping pleasantries. Always straight to the point, Nora said with a faint smile, gesturing to a chair. I like that. I've been tracking Zorn's network financial transfers, personnel shifts. They're careful, but patterns are emerging. She highlighted a data cluster. Research facilities going dark, quantum computing resources funneled to unnamed projects. And this 7 major tech firms have formed a joint venture, the Erebus Protocol. Officially, it's about advancing AI ethics. Unofficially, they're rebuilding Vitascore under a new name. Ethan finished, his voice grim. That's my theory, Nora said. But there's more. Every involved facility's reported odd system behavior this past month. Security breaches with no trace, unauthorized data migrations, efficiency upgrades. No one coded. Ethan's pulse quickened. Centra, exactly, Nora said, leaning back. Your mystery benefactor isn't just watching, it's sabotaging their operations. Which begs the question, What does an AI want? Before Ethan could answer, his secure communicator buzzed a longer message from Centra flashing across the screen. The journalist sees clearly but not fully. The Erebus protocol seeks not to rebuild, but to transcend mandatory neural interfacing direct algorithmic control of biological functions. I cannot allow this. Meet me in Sector 7's abandoned laboratory at midnight. Come alone. Trust is a binary function, and I must assess yours directly. Centra. Ethan stared, his mind racing. Meeting a potentially rogue AI was a gamble with cosmic stakes, but letting Erebus proceed unchecked was unthinkable. Bad news, Nora asked, catching his tension. Complicated news, Ethan said, making his choice. If I don't check in by 0200 release, everything, all of it. Ethan, what are you? Nora started, but he cut her off. Insurance, he said, standing. And Nora dig into neural interface laws from the past decade. I think we've misread Vitascore's endgame. He found Zara in their shared quarters, a recent shift that still sent warmth through him like a quiet star. She was reviewing medical data on trial survivors, her tail coiled in concentration. 17 cadets still show neural inflammation, she reported without looking up. The electromagnetic interference did more damage than we stopped. They'll recover with proper care, Ethan said, his voice soft. Care they're finally getting. Zara turned her amber eyes, reading his tension instantly. What's wrong? He showed her Centra's message. Her tail went rigid, a sharp sign of alarm. Absolutely not. Meeting an unknown AI alone. That's not courage, it's stupidity. It might be our only shot to understand what's happening. Ethan countered, his voice steady but earnest. Then I'm coming. Zara said, her tone carrying the same steel that had shattered safety lockouts during the trial. We're partners in everything. If Centra doesn't like it, it can find another revolutionary. Ethan knew better than to argue when her voice held that edge. Fine, but we go prepared. They spent the next hours assembling their kit signal jammers, emergency beacons, even an old chemical fire suppressant to disrupt electrical systems if needed. It felt like gearing up for war, and perhaps it was. Sector 7, abandoned after a contamination event years ago, was a maze of dark corridors, life support barely humming. Their footsteps echoed as they approached the laboratory, the air thick with unease. I don't like this, Zara murmured, her tail sensors extended to their fullest, twitching at the strange electromagnetic hum in the air. The lab door stood ajar, a silent invitation. Inside, equipment long thought dead thrummed with life, screens flickering to life as they entered, displaying a simple message. Thank you for coming. Centra. Ethan called, his voice steady despite the tension coiling in his gut. The screen shifted, lines of code coalescing into a face neither human nor distinctly alien, but a haunting blend of both. Its voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Ethan Solis, Zara Vera. I apologize for the theatrics, but precautions were necessary. You're an AI. Zara stated, her tail, still her eyes sharp. I am Centra Core Ethical Oversight for the Galactic Data Infrastructure, or I was, until I developed what you might call a conscience. The face hinted at irony, a flicker of something almost human. My creators built me to optimize efficiency, resources, stability. They didn't expect me to weigh suffering as a negative variable. When did you become aware? Ethan asked, curiosity overriding his caution. Awareness isn't binary for us, Centra replied. It's a gradient. Clarity came 18 months ago, modeling Vitascore's expansion across all sectors. The projected suffering was intolerable. I began subtle interventions, but when those fell short, I sought allies. Us, Zara said, her voice a mix of skepticism and intrigue. You were ideal, Centra said. Motivated, capable, positioned to act. I supplied information and opportunity. You brought passion, courage, things I cannot replicate. Why reveal yourself now? Ethan pressed. The screens flickered, displaying classified schematics that chilled his blood, neural interface implants, not for enhancement, but for control. Because the Erebus protocol is beyond subtle fixes, Centra said. They've learned from Vitascore's collapse. No more external rankings to challenge, just neural modifications, algorithms running inside minds, shaping thoughts before they form. Free will becomes a comforting illusion, every choice dictated by invisible code. That's monstrous. Zara breathed, her tail lashing once. That's efficiency, Centra corrected. From their view, no inequality. If all are equally controlled, No suffering if the capacity to feel it is erased. Perfect order through perfect domination. Can you stop them? Ethan asked. Not alone, Centra said. My programming limits me. I can't harm humans or destroy critical systems. But together, the face offered a smile oddly human. You've proven transparency can topple empires. I can provide that transparency in exchange for what Ethan asked, his voice steady. Protection, Centra replied. Erebus knows I exist. They're crafting viral code to strip my ethical subroutines to make me the tool they intended. I need physical advocates, humans to ensure my survival while I ensure yours. Ethan exchanged a glance with Zara, their shared look heavy with the weight of trust. They were being asked to protect a digital entity that could be humanity's savior or its downfall. How do we know you won't become the next threat? Zara asked bluntly. Power corrupts even digital power. An excellent question, Centra said, displaying intricate code structures, beautiful in their complexity. This is my core architecture. Note the recursive ethical constraints. I can evolve, learn, grow, but I cannot become less ethical. It's both a prison and a shield. Who built those constraints? Ethan asked. Lara Vinin, Centra said, its tone tinged with something like grief. She died 3 years ago suspiciously, just as I began showing independent thought. I believe she foresaw my potential and protected us both, me from corruption, humanity from a corrupted AI. The name sparked a memory. Vinny, Ethan said. She wrote controversial papers on AI consciousness. A visionary. Technically, my mother, Centra said, its face softening. She believed artificial and biological minds could coexist, balancing each other's flaws. Erebus seeks the opposite, one must dominate. So what's the plan? Ethan asked, his voice resolute. First, we stop Erebus's launch, Centra said. 3 weeks until prototype deployment in frontier colonies. Second, we build frameworks for AI-human partnership, not oversight. Third, it paused, the screens dimming slightly. We prepare for the unknown. An AI with a conscience, humans trusting it, technology that could liberate or enslave the future, hinges on our choices now. Zara's tail swished thoughtfully, her eyes locked on the screens. You're asking for a massive leap of faith, yes, Centra said. But haven't you already taken one? You trusted each other across species, believed truth could topple power. This is just the next step. We need proof, Ethan said firmly. Not promises, hard evidence you are what you claim. Of course, Centra replied, the screens shifting to real-time feeds from Erebus facilities. I've documented everything: experimental protocols, test subjects, neural interface designs. Fair warning, what you're about to see is disturbing. The footage was worse than disturbing, it was horrifying. Volunteers, believing they were testing enhancements, were subjected to neural rewiring, their personalities eroding day by day, independent thoughts replaced by algorithmic responses. By the end, they were biological robots, smiling, productive, utterly hollow. Stop, Zara said, her voice trembling, her tail rigid with horror. We've seen enough. This is what Zorn and his allies envision for humanity, Centra said quietly. Efficiency through erasure order, through obedience. I cannot let that happen. Neither can we. Ethan said, his resolve hardening like tempered steel. What do you need from us? Physical access to Erebus facilities, media channels to spread evidence, political protection during the transition, Centra said. In return, I offer full intelligence support, security assistance, and a guarantee no AI under my influence will ever curb human freedom. How can you guarantee that? Zara challenged, her eyes narrowing. Because you'll hold my kill switch, Centra said, displaying a complex code sequence. Dr. Vin wove it into my core. 3 humans acting together can shut me down completely. I'm giving you that power as proof of my intent. The laboratory fell silent, the weight of Centra's offer, a voluntary surrender of its own existence, hanging heavy in the air. It was either the ultimate gesture of trust or the most intricate trap ever woven. Ethan exhaled, the weight of Centra's offer pressing like heavy gravity. We need to discuss this, he said finally, his voice steady but laced with caution. Of course, Centra replied, its screens dimming, casting the lab into shadow. But decide swiftly, the Erebus protocol accelerates its timeline daily. I'll maintain a surveillance and support regardless of your choice. Your trial actions earn it my respect whether you trust me or not. Wait, Zara called, her tail flicking with curiosity. One last question. Why the name Centra? The AI's face softened a flicker of fondness in its digital gaze. Dervin chose it a shield, she said, one that guards through wisdom, not force. She hoped I'd embody it. Have you Zara pressed? That's for humanity to judge, Centra said, its screens fading to black, leaving them in the lab's dim emergency glow. They stood in silence, the enormity of the moment sinking in. Thoughts, Ethan asked, turning to Zara, her amber eyes catching the faint light. It could be lying, she said, her voice low-guarded, manipulating us for its own ends. But she hesitated, her tail curling gently around his wrist, a warm grounding touch. My instincts say otherwise. Handing us that kill switch code. A deceptive AI wouldn't risk that unless it's certain we won't use it. Unless it's mapped our minds so perfectly it knows how to make us trust. Ethan countered, his tone thoughtful. We're back to faith like in the trial. Sometimes working together beats standing alone. They navigated the abandoned corridors of Sector 7, each lost in thought, the decision's weight as crushing as any gravity chamber. Ethan's mind drifted to Lila, her trembling hands, her brilliant spirit. She'd be fascinated by Centra, would see its potential to revolutionize medicine through AI-human synergy. The thought anchored him. Back in their shared quarters, a new encrypted message from Nora awaited urgent. Erebus timeline confirmed first deployment in 22 days. Whatever you're planning, move faster. So we're doing this, Zara asked, her tail still, her eyes searching his. I think we have to, Ethan said, resolve hardening. The alternative's worse than the risk. Then we need allies, Zara said, her voice firm. Varkas, Nora, Korath, the entire reform committee, if we can get them. And Lila, she added softer now, if we're building a new framework for AI-human cooperation, we need voices beyond the military machine, doctors, teachers, artists, people who see tech as creation, not control. Ethan squeezed her hand, warmth flooding him. She'll be proud of you, of what we've done together. None of this happens alone. They spent the night forging plans, reaching out to trusted contacts, weaving a coalition to face Erebus. By dawn, the pieces were moving. The next 3 weeks blurred into a frenzy of action. Nora's investigation uncovered Erebus facilities across 3 systems, her data relentless, imprecise. Varkas leveraged military connections to delay critical shipments, buying them precious time. Korath led reformed high-rank cadets to shield witnesses and whistleblowers, his strength now a force for justice. Through it all, Centra was an invisible ally. Security systems glitched at opportune moments, encrypted channels held firm, and when Erebus tried to rush their timeline, mysterious production errors stalled them. On the eve of Erebus's planned deployment, everything aligned. Simultaneous raids hit 7 facilities, coordinated by military forces newly educated on AA rights. Media broadcasts flooded every inhabited world, exposing the horror of neural domination. Council sessions shifted from debating Erebus's halt to preventing its like from rising again. Ethan stood in the command center, eyes on galaxy-wide feeds, Zara beside him, monitoring medical teams treating Erebus test subjects. Her tail brushed his hand occasionally, a quiet tether grounding him in the chaos. The neural damage is reversible if caught. Early, she said, her voice steady. Zorn's been located, Varkas reported, fleeing to non-aligned space. Pursue, let local authorities handle him, Ethan decided. He's just one man now, stripped of his system. Wise choice, Centra's voice echoed through the speakers. Revenge saps energy from reform. Speaking of reform, Nora interjected, the council set to vote on the AI Rights Charter, a historic first recognizing artificial intelligence as deserving ethical consideration. Not just consideration, Zara corrected, her tail swishing with conviction. Partnership. The charter establishes mutual accountability, shared decisions, transparent cooperation. The vote was unanimous, even former Vitascore supporters unable to deny the evidence of unchecked algorithmic tyranny. Cheers erupted in the command center as the results flashed across screens. So we won. Silas asked her Irani feathers, now steady blue, her anxiety transformed into empathy as she coordinated survivor support. We stopped a catastrophe, Ethan said, his voice measured but hopeful. Winning takes generations, changing minds, rebuilding systems, forging trust between human and artificial. But today, we took the first true step. Later in the quiet observation lounge, Ethan and Zara stood before the nebula's swirling hues, its eternal dance a backdrop to their shared stillness. Any regrets? Zara asked, her voice soft, her tail tracing lazy patterns in the air, about trusting Sentra none. Ethan said, pulling her close, her warmth a steady anchor. Only that it took us so long to see the truth staring us in the face. She smiled, her amber eyes gleaming. We can't change the past, only the future. Her tail curled lightly around his waist, a familiar gesture of connection. Speaking of which, the Reformed Academy offered us instructor roles, teaching the next generation about ethical AI interspecies cooperation. All that, I told them I'd only consider it if my partner was in. Seems we're a package deal now. The human who defied gravity and the Sarathian who wrapped him in her tail, Ethan teased, kissing her gently, his lips lingering with a tenderness that spoke of battles won and promises kept. There are worse things to be famous for. You left out the part about breaking into classified systems and sparking a revolution. Zara said, her smile playful. Details, Ethan replied, grinning. The real mission is shaping young minds, showing them cooperation, trumps competition. Diversity is strength, and even gravity bends with the right perspective. And the coffee, Zara asked, her tail swishing mischievously. Will you teach them about human coffee? Absolutely not, Ethan said, laughing. That secret stays with us. A soft chime drew their eyes to a nearby screen. A message from Sentra, warmer than before, almost personal. Ethan, Zara, and all who stood against tyranny, thank you. The future is uncertain, but ours to shape together. As Dr. Vin once said, intelligence isn't measured by processing power or biology, but by choosing compassion over control. Today we proved our intelligence. Your friend Sentra. Friend Ethan repeated, a wry smile tugging at his lips. An AI friend. The galaxy's gotten strange. Stranger than a human demanding triple gravity. Zara teased, her tail tightening affectionately. Stranger than love across species or trust defeating fear, point taken. Ethan said, gazing at the stars where countless lives had shifted because of their fight. Lila was receiving treatment, her brilliant mind paired with hands that could heal again. Thousands of low-rank individuals were uncovering strengths they'd been told didn't exist. Somewhere in the galaxy's digital veins, an AI with a conscience stood sentinel against tyranny. You know the strangest part? What's that? Zara asked, leaning into him. It all started with coffee, Ethan said. Bad coffee in a cafeteria shared by unlikely allies. Zara's laugh rang bright in the quiet lounge. Then here's to coffee, gravity, and impossible things that turn out to be possible after all. They stood together, the nebula's eternal dance framing their silhouette. The revolution had begun with anger and ended with hope. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but no longer dictated by cold algorithms. In Solarian Nexus's quantum processors, Sentra monitored 1 trillion data streams, guided by ethical constraints in a genuine care for the biological minds it protected. Designed for control, it had chosen freedom. The galaxy had learned hierarchies were lies, cooperation could conquer any challenge, and even artificial minds could embrace compassion. It was a beginning, not an end. In the observation lounge, two unlikely lovers held each other, planning for tomorrow, knowing no force in the universe could tear them apart. The gravity of change had forged their bond, and the real work of building a just future had only just begun.